Coach Avalos, how's it going?
Good. Well, you're not Todd.
I am not Todd.
No.
He had to step out for a second, so I'm filling in for him for a little bit.
Okay.
First question, Matt Preem, 247 Sports.
Andy, a couple times this year, happened again against Oregon State, the D-line seems to be lining up significantly further back than typical. What's the schematic advantage you get from putting your D lineman a little bit further back than what we normally would see?
Well, in certain situations, when the offensive line is trying to crowd the ball so that they can't get their feet in the ground, there's something typically that we and a lot of teams do based off of scouting teams and things like that. Now, there's certain alignments, not only with the D-line, but as well as with the edge players, with the linebackers, that we really need to clean up. And that starts with me and making sure that we have a clearer picture earlier in the week, that we rep that and create the consistency of that through the course of the week. So that starts with me and making sure that on all levels we understand what our alignments are versus all the various formations, whether it be pro style spread or whatever the case may be.
Next question, James Carpia, Oregonian.
Andy, we talked in the preseason about havoc rate in particular, and when you guys are struggling with that, particularly from the interior defensive line, no TFLs other than Christian's one, no sacks from that group, and a regression in the run game year over year. How do you explain how it's happened so far, and how do you guys try to shore it up here in these last few games?
James, that's a good question. And, it's not, you're not always as far off. You're not, obviously we're not where we want to be. But again, it starts with me and making sure that we have a clear idea of what we're doing and how we're going to do it to create the consistency at the start of the week and finish all the way through every single day, all the way through the week. And then when we do get in the game, it will build that confidence to rep it in the game exactly how we've repped it in practice. And that's our goal. We've had great meetings over the course of this weekend. Obviously, when you have something happen like what happened, there are a lot of conversations to be had, and we had a lot of great conversations, and we're looking forward, about getting back to the blueprint, which starts with, physicality and stopping the run game and committing ourselves to that as a whole. And I will say it again, it starts with me making sure that I'm doing a better job of having the guys' confidence high in the beginning of the week and carrying it all the way through to the end of the game.
Eric Scopel, 247 Sports.
Mario just talked about this, and you're talking about this, but just accountability from man-to-man across the roster. You talk about it as a coach. Mario talked about it for himself. How have you seen that from your guys, and just how important is it after a tough loss like this for everybody to kind of raise their hand when they realize they made an error and make sure they own up to it?
You know what? As in any family, that's what you do when something happens. And we have remarkable young men in this program, and that's the bottom line. And again, we won't go into any of the details, but we've had some great conversations over the weekend where we were able to shed some light. We were all able to communicate some things that we need to do better. And we're all in it together to do that and to work forward and to reestablish, the blueprint of this program, which has made us successful, which starts with our mentality, our humbleness, our hungriness, and how that affects every single day the work we do. And our guys are excited to grow forward from this experience that we've been through here in the last couple of weeks.
Ryan Thorburn, Register Guard.
Andy, Cal had pretty high expectations coming into the season with Chase Garbers and a bunch of experienced guys back. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they've struggled with cancellations and playing a game with such short notice on a Sunday. Is it hard to judge or make out, what their offense is like at this point, or do you have a pretty good gauge on what Cal 2020 is right now?
I mean, you said it best, Ryan. I mean, that first week, there's things that you just got to – I mean, they had to prepare for that with a new offense in 3 days or whatever it was, right? What they've done since then, you can see the growth. You can see what they're doing. Obviously, Chase is a good quarterback. He's got weapons around. He's got tailbacks. He's got tight ends. He's got an O-line that has had to shuffle guys through like everybody else. And they're right there. In the last couple games they've been in against good opponents that we've played, and that, it's common opponents. So they have grown so much in the last couple weeks. And they posed some issues in the pass game. They got some wide receivers on the outside. They got some length, and that, Chase is getting in sync with. So we know this. We're going to be in a dogfight this week, and we've got to prepare ourselves the best that we can by focusing on ourselves and reestablishing the things that have made us successful in the past.
AJ Jacobs and Rivals.
Now, Coach, I don't mean to grind on about this, but the last 2 weeks, trouble stopping the run, and that's such a huge part of your philosophy is stopping the run first. So what do you have to do against this Cal team who can run the ball to flip that around?
Again, it starts with the confidence to understand how your piece of the puzzle fits. And from there, it's the consistency of which we all operate. And that starts in the meeting room, us doing a better job in the meeting room, us doing a better job of planning individual and making sure that our guys truly understand how these techniques and these fundamentals in individual are going to apply. And then we got to take those over into team reps. And we've got to do a more consistent job throughout the week of repping that stuff, whether it be alignments, fundamentals, and techniques, to build that confidence and to know no matter what happens in the game, we're going to stick to what we've trained to do, what we've planned to do, and we will do it. And the guys are excited to make a huge jump at doing that. And again, it starts with us in the meeting rooms. It starts with us providing clarity.
Jerry Thompson, Ducks Illustrated.
Yeah, Coach, the last two series, Oregon State, I'm sorry to bring it up, but they moved the ball quite easily. It seemed like Isaac made a great play. Looks like the game's over if the offense takes. But then they come down pretty easily again. I know it's not the effort. Is there anything you could have done differently? Why were they able to move the ball so well? And I'm asking, did they just play better? Are they just a better offensive line? You said before the game that they're probably the best offensive line you faced. So.
Yes, and take no credit away from them. They obviously did a phenomenal job. They did a phenomenal job finishing the game. That's one of the things we pride ourselves on here is winning the fourth quarter. And ultimately it could come down to that last drive like you talked about. It don't matter the circumstances. It really doesn't. And it never does. And that's where we got to grow forward, that it never can matter the circumstances. We've got to do a better job finishing games. And that's one of the things that we will emphasize. That's one of the things that we'll build in our mentality. And our guys understand that, and they know that. And as coaches, we've got to do a better job of making sure that we finish games, whether that's the mentality and keeping ourselves in the fight and staying focused through the course of an entire game. Obviously, we've got to be able to adjust and do some things differently, no matter the circumstances.
James Crepia.
With that, Andy, and I know you could say this is an excuse, but I look for context. The time possession second half was more than 20-10, and how stretched thin you got in terms of Pickett going down, Jamal, Daywood, and Dante, Drew going out, Adrian going out. I realize a lot of this is front seven stuff, but still, sooner or later, guys get gassed, and you were stretched. So how much of this is just the degree of context of, look, it costs games, like it is what it is, but you guys were stretched. They were gassed, and going forward, that you hope is not going to be a problem because these guys are coming back.
Well, I'll say this again. They finished – you're right, James. They finished better than us. Ultimately, they did. And that's what resulted in what you're talking about. At the end of the day, we have to find a way, and our mentality has to stay that way. There are going to be circumstances that come up in the game that aren't related, that we don't control, that aren't related to X's and O's, that aren't related to the actual, there's just things that come up, and we've got to be able to have the mental fortitude to push through. And by doing so, how we can help ourselves is be more diligent early on in the first and second down to get ourselves in better position with the sticks so that we're not extending, the drives don't get extended. We had too many long drives in the second half. And yes, there were some things that came up, but we have to do a better job early on in the downs. And as we've spoken about, that starts with the run game.
Eric Scopel.
Andy, from a tackling perspective, I think it continues to be a work in progress. I guess assess your team's tackling this last week compared to previous weeks, and how do you go about improving that from practice? Because it is a lot of experienced guys who seemingly have a lot of reps coming into the season and through these weeks too.
You know what? It was one of our biggest concerns coming into the season. And guys that have played football for a long time, you got to tackle. I wish it was like the old saying, like riding a bike, right? But it's not. And so where do we go from here? We've devoted a lot of time with the time we do have into tackling, and we'll continue to do so. We didn't start off well, obviously, with a long run early on in the game. There are more than a few tackles we could have made on that run, but that's a learning deal. We have got to start a lot faster and we've got to finish. And that's everything in between. That's the start of a snap and that's the finish of a snap. And to your point, the tackling part. And so we'll continue to emphasize those things. We've got to do it in controlled settings where it's technique based and the players understand exactly what we're working on. There is no reactions. We're working into our near foot punch, our strikes, our clamps, our rolls, and then move those into tackling bodies. Whatever that may be, scout team players in controlled settings. And then obviously when we're in our team periods, we got to do a much better job with our finishes, which last night in our Sunday practice was by far the best that we've ever done. So you can see the urgency and the care factor. Again, the care factor right now is there.
All right, we got time for one more. So Matt Preem, 247 Sports.
These fixes, do you feel like these are things that can be accomplished in a couple of weeks? I don't want to say easy fixes, but are there things that you can say, hey, we know we can get this done in the course of the year? Or are they something that, spring football, the lack of that playing a factor, you just can't make it up?
No, these are things that we are going to get better at. We will. And I know we've been talking about that, but I think our mindset is right now. And we believe in each other. And I believe our mindset, more importantly, for all of us, is ready to move forward and make these improvements that we've been talking about. And honestly, we can't wait to get on the field tomorrow and practice.
Thanks for your time, Coach.
Thank you, guys.